Shabbat Shalom. If you'll all take a seat, and you should have one of these prayer books, and if you didn't get one, they're on the cart right in the back. So everybody needs a prayer book, not a chumash. That's the big old book that lives there. So if somebody wants to go from Sam, why don't you go get prayer books for your whole row? Help your sister, okay? Because you won't have fun if you're just an audience. We're beginning on page 22, and it's the indented paragraph. The righteous bloom like a date palm, they thrive like a cedar in Lebanon. Tzaddik Katamar. Tzaddik Katamar yifrach, ke'erez balvanon yizke, ay, ay, ay. Tzaddik Katamar yifrach, ke'erez balvanon yizke. שתולים בבית אדוני, בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו. שתולים בבית אדוני, בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו. צדיק כתמר יפרח, כארז בלבנון יזכה, איי איי איי. צדיק כתמר יפרח, כארז בלבנון יזכה. ולבון בסבע, דשנים ובננים יהיו. להגיד כי ישר אדוני, צורי ולא עוולת בו, איי איי איי. צדיק כתמר יפרח, כארז בלבנון יזכה, איי איי איי. צדיק כתמר יפרח, כארז בלבנון יזכה.
I want to welcome you all into our sanctuary, and those who are joining us virtually. Thank you so much for being a part of our service, for our experience this evening. A reminder for those in our sanctuary, I know many of you will be here tomorrow. One of the things that we've done in our congregation, just to help out with the issue of COVID, is if you want to sit masked apart from other people, you certainly can do that. I know that I'm not putting that in the best form, but our side aisles are reserved for those who want to protect themselves a little bit more by sitting just with those who are masked like they are. So you have that option if you want in our sanctuary. For those who are joining us virtually, a reminder that if you have names for our healing list, you can send those to JJ in the chat or on your virtual platform in the comment section, those names for healing, and also later in our service, the names for our Kaddish as well. Now I'd like to invite our bat mitzvah and her brother Sam and Jeff and Rachel to come up and light our candles for us this evening. We're going to ask our congregation to please turn to page 3. Page 3.
First, Jeff.
She's reading, page 3.
You want to read this? As the Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all that behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
Now.
Sure.
No, but you gotta light this one first. Okay. Thanks.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu
melech
melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu b'hadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו להדליק נר, להדליק נר של Shabbat. Now you have to kiss each other.
Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
I have to tell you, Jeff is actually my son. You don't know this, but my brother and he are my son and he are brothers, so that makes him my son through A Pi, and I sometimes forget and treat him like the little boy he used to be. We continue on page 10. Yedid nefesh av harachaman, Yedid nefesh av harachaman, Meshoch avdecha el retzonecha, Meshoch avdecha, ya la 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 la, el retzonecha. Yarut avdecha kemo aya, yishtachave ya la 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 la, el mol hadarecha. Yarut avdecha kemo aya, yishtachave ya la 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 la, el mol hadarecha.
We continue our service with Lecha Dodi. Lecha Dodi is a mystical composition that was composed by Shlomo Halevi Alkabetz. And in Svat, there was this tradition, and probably it's still practiced in Svat today, where the mystics of the congregation would go outside and welcome the Sabbath bride. And this particular poem, although we're not going to sing all the verses, have got so many wonderful notions about the history and spirit of Judaism, and I just want to share a couple of them with you. If you look at on page 20 to the first stanza, you see that in English it says, "Keep and remember a single command the only God caused us to hear." The reference to the single command regarding the Ten Commandments at Mount Sinai is written in two different places, once in the book of Exodus and once in the book of Deuteronomy, and the versions are slightly different. And the rabbis, of course, just like lawyers, I guess, debate these issues. Is it this verb or that verb? And the rabbi said, no. Both the verses in Deuteronomy and Exodus were recited by God at the same moment. So both those verbs related to the Ten Commandments are valid. And the last thing I just want to point out is verse 9, where we're going to rise as community and face west, because it's when we see the sun set that we know the Sabbath is beginning, and so we welcome in the Sabbath bride with the setting of the sun. But in some congregations, there was this tradition that those who'd lost loved ones during the week, they wouldn't enter the sanctuary in order to say Kaddish until this last stanza of Lecha Dodi. And so they would enter, the congregation would be bowing to welcome in the Sabbath bride, as well as showing respect to those who've lost loved ones during the week. So it's a lovely a lovely thought. So Cantor will continue
So
with
there's
Lechato Di.
one thing I want to add, and that's that Shoshana is amazing at leading a service, but she's not prepared to give a show. So maybe you can practice by singing during the service so that she has a congregation to lead when she's up here instead of everybody being her audience, because she doesn't want that, right, Shosh? Okay, so Lechato Di, page 20. Lechato Di likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. 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 Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, yishmi'anu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, l'shem tiferet v'litila. Lechato Di likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lechato Di likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki mekor haberacha, merosh mikedem nesucha. סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. Lechato Di לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Lechato Di לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, שיר דברי. כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. Lechato Di לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Lechato Di לקראת כלה, pnei Shabbat nekabela. We rise to welcome Shabbat. Boi v'shalom ateret ba'ala, gam b'simcha u'v'tzola, toch emunei am segula. Boi chala, Lechato Di לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Lechato Di לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Please be seated. We continue on page 27. Entrances to holiness are everywhere. The possibility of ascent is all the time, even at unlikely times and through unlikely places. There is no place on earth without the presence. We continue with the Chatzi Kaddish on page 26.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומייכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בגלה ובזמן קריב, ועם mevorach leolam ulolmei olmaya yitbarach yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dikurisha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'olma ve'imeru amen. We rise for the Baruch Hu, page 28. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai HaMevorach HaMevorach Leolam Va'ed.
Please be seated. The bottom of page 30 in English together. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night, and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzevaot is your name. Every living God, you may reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamariv Aravim. Page 32. Everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We'll rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we'll reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. We rise for the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed.
Please be seated. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך. ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך ובביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ושוכבך ובקומך, ותרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, ותרתם על מזוזות ביתך ודבי שעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים אלוהיהם. אני Adonai Elohim. Hoteit Yadhem Me'eretz Mitzrayim Liot Lachem Elohim Ani Adonai Elohim.
That was great. Thanks. We continue on page 41. Page 41. Sing the song of men and women joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come, the song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, for soldiers home to leave no more, the song of a world redeemed, the song of peace.
Bim bum, I die, 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 da, da, die, ba, bye, bye, bim bum, I die, da, die, 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 ba, bye, bye, bim bum, I die, da, die, 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 ba, bye, bye, bim bum, mi chamocha, bailim Adonai, mi kamocha, nedar bakodesh, norati lo osefele, norati lo osefele, malchut becha, rahu vanecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe, ze lianu ve'ameru, Adonai imloch leolam va'ed. Yai rai 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 ba bye bye bim bum. Ai rai 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 ba bye bye bim bum. Ai rai 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 ba bye bye bim bum. Ai rai 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 ba bye bye bim bum. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גא ישראל.
Page 45. Page 45. A thought has blown the marketplace away. There is a song on the wind and joy in the trees. Shabbat arrives in the world, scattering a song in the silence of the night. Eternity utters a day.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני, עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש. שמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
We rise now for the Amida, page 46. Please rise.
Adonai, שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומדומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישוע, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יעללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. We continue silently through page 62, either standing or sitting. שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו, אמרו, אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו, אמרו, אמן. יאללה לה 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 לה, יאללה לה 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 לה, יאללה לה 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 לה, יאללה לה 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 לה, יאללה לה 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 לה. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו, אמרו, אמן.
A reminder for those joining us virtually that if you have names for our healing list, you should send those in to JJ in the chat or on your virtual platform in the comment section. It's now my delight and honor to introduce the two folks who are providing our drosh for this evening, Rachel and Jeff Jacobson.
This week's Torah portion is Lech Lecha. And if you know the Jacobsons, you know we love to tell great stories. And if you're into character-driven stories, then this Torah portion is for you.
As this parsha begins, God says to Abram, Lech Lecha, meaning go out from your home and your father's house to a land that I will show you. God promises to bless Abram and make him a great nation.
So does Abram actually just pick up everything and boldly go where no one has gone before?
Yep.
Please continue.
In exchange for Abram obeying God's request, God promises Abram children and land, that he will be the father of a great nation, like the multitude of the stars in the sky.
So was the land God promised Abram called Canaan, or what we now know as Israel?
Exactly. Can I continue?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Wait, hold on. Wait. How did Abram and God seal the deal? Was there a contract?
I'm getting to that.
Sorry. You know us lawyers. Occupational hazard.
The deal between God and Abram is sealed with the Brit Milah, circumcision of the flesh. This is also when God changes Abram's name to Abraham. Abram's wife also becomes part of the covenant between Abram and his descendants when God blesses her and changes her name from Sarah to Sarah.
So we know Abraham is kind of a big deal. But when we're first introduced to him, he's already an adult. So what do we know about his childhood, and why did God choose him to go to Canaan?
Well, the Torah actually tells us nothing about Abram's childhood.
Are there any rabbinic rock stars who could help?
There are, in fact. There's a pretty famous midrash that can help tell us about Abraham's character. Young Abram was working in his father's idol shop and stages a riot among the idols, smashing all of them to pieces except for one. Terach says the impossible, When Abram's father Terach returns, Abram tells him that one of the idols smashed the others to pieces. Terah says that's impossible since idols are lifeless creations. Abraham now makes his point to his father. If you know that they are just works of your hand, why do you worship them? Terah knew on some level that the idols were a sham, but he would not admit it or do anything about it until his son came along to make the point.
So Abram was smart and unafraid to challenge authority. He was also pretty courageous.
Why do you say that?
Well, Abram took a pretty big risk. He was challenging his family, his community, and his father's livelihood, all because he had the vision for something different.
Taking risks sounds like a good idea for a sermon, right?
I totally agree. And that's a great cliffhanger. Tune in tomorrow at 10 a.m. for Shabbat morning services.
Sure.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you so much for that. We look forward to the conclusion. We're going to continue now with our prayer of healing. We have on our Misha Barak list added this week Barbara Roswell, Yaakov Kantrowitz, and Cheryl Bernstein. And online we have Joel Brown, Karen Heller, Joel Heller, Anita Dennis, and Debbie Foss. If there anyone in the sanctuary who would like to mention a loved one for healing, you can do so at this time. Lori? Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Jean. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. How'd you find out? Okay, we'll chat later. That's my sister. Yeah, yeah, it does.
And the Cohen Stewart family.
Oh, thank you.
Right in front of you, Rabbi.
Pardon me? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. So our Misha Barak prayer is found on page 253. We ask if you'd like to rise physically or spiritually, whatever your preference is, page 253.
Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach imotenu mekor havracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Please be seated. Did I just hear it's too cold here? That's my sermon. So I had a dilemma, and that was to try and figure out what I would speak to you about tonight. One is the weather, because that has just recently changed. Of course, I could talk about the Torah portion, I could talk about Kyrie Irving and what occurred with the Brooklyn Nets and his offering on Twitter. Or I could talk about the election coming up. So I'm going to talk about everything, but very briefly. So one of the fascinating things, I was talking to Marcia, and you know that the better preacher from the pulpit is my wife and not myself. And so I asked her for some advice on what to talk about. And she said, it's really quite interesting that we just had this cold snap. I mean, yesterday it was overcast. I came home early, completely exhausted for whatever reason from work. And I laid on the couch. I turned on the fire because it was just freezing outside, according to us. Anyone else from, a place like Michigan or Alaska, they don't feel sorry for us at all. But for us, there was this big change that happened really quickly. And the thing that we don't have in Arizona that people have on the East Coast is you get the fall changes. You get the leaves changing colors and falling off the branches and seeing the bare branches. What happens in Arizona is it happens all of a sudden. And what's interesting, she said to me, was that Lech Lecha, this Torah portion that we read this weekend, always occurs at this time when the weather changes abruptly in southern Arizona. It doesn't occur in the spring. It doesn't occur in May, when things are gently changing from winter to spring blossoms and so on and so forth. You have this change where you've got to turn on the heat in your house. You've got to wear warmer clothing. One of our friends this evening is wearing a vest with no sleeves, which is completely appropriate, as we agreed upon. If you need me to discuss this with your spouse, we'll discuss that later. But perfectly appropriate with this kind of change. And we have and Lech Lecha is this abrupt change. Jeff and Rachel made this reference tonight in their remarks, and also Shoshana is going to make mention of this tomorrow, that Avram moves from a place of comfort and familiarity and immediately makes some change and direction someplace else. So I'll get to that, a little bit more about that in just a moment. The other thing I'm only going to mention briefly is go vote. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, but what's so important for us, I had a discussion with one of our staff people today one of the candidates she was going to vote for dropped out. And it was the most interesting conversation I had with a voter, and that was that she had to determine who she was going to vote to instead based on her values. I mean, she was voting for the person based on deep values that she held dear as an American citizen, and so she had to now make a new choice based on her values, not party. And I thought that was just brilliant. So that's all I'm going to say. If you haven't voted, please vote. It's an important responsibility and obligation from your religious upbringing, but also as an American citizen, and that's a whole nother story. The interesting thing about Lech Lecha and about individual responsibility, Abraham Joshua Heschel wrote an amazing book called The Insecurity of Freedom, and in his chapter on the individual Jew and his obligations, he said there are 3 words that really mark how we look at the world sometimes: disaster, deliverance, and dismay. Disaster, deliverance, and dismay. These are the 3 words that in Heschel's view of the world really marked a Jewish existence. Throughout history, we've seen disaster, the destruction of the temple, the expulsion into the diaspora of the Jews who lived in Palestine at that particular time, and to go to all different parts of the world, and then suffering expulsions from England, from France, from Hungary in the 13th and 14th centuries, Spain in the 15th century in 1492, the destruction of millions of souls during the Holocaust and World War II, deliverance, many deliverances throughout our history, the safe haven for Jews in the Golden Age of Spain, certainly with the Russian Jews coming in the 19th century to the United States of America, and then the creation of the State of Israel. And then dismay. We have in the back of our minds, even today, with the remarks of Kyrie Irving, Ye or Kanye West a few weeks ago, and the rise of anti-Semitism and what we're seeing in New Jersey today. What I just found out from one of our board members, that one of my colleagues announced to his congregation in New Jersey that they're having their service tonight by Zoom because of the threat in New Jersey towards synagogues. And so we have this dismay about, are we next, and what's happening in terms of that. Kyrie Irving's a very interesting case, and I just want to mention just really briefly, I had a discussion with my basketball son, Benny Lockheim, and there are threats that the Jewish community feels from different places. Some are threats that are more dire. Some come from ignorance. And we concluded, and we can talk about this afterwards at the Oneg if you want, that for this individual it came from a place of ignorance. And he even said in his quote-unquote apology, there were things in this documentary that he put out to his followers that he agreed with, and some things he didn't. The issue for the Jewish community is it may not be Kyrie Irving that's a problem, but those who read Kyrie Irving and follow him. But it's all a matter of whether we see disaster or simply dismay and how we respond to someone like that. But one of the things that is important for us, and from the Torah portion, and the individual response we have from Abraham and Sarah in this week's Torah portion, is number one, we don't build institutions that we can hide behind. So we don't create a synagogue that is a safeguard within these walls from everything that threatens us from the outside. That's obvious with what's happening in New Jersey and the attacks that have happened in places of worship. But what is important is what individuals do, not what institutions do. We can't have a Judaism that that we can embrace in private or in the solitude of a sanctuary or in our home, because then it just becomes a phantom or a ghost. We can't rely on the leader of the synagogue to stand up for us, whether it's the president of the congregation, the rabbi, the cantor of the congregation, stand up and protest from the pulpit about things that are going on. We can't rely on the Jewish Federation. We can't rely on the American Jewish Committee, the Anti-Defamation League to represent us. But what Abraham Joshua Heschel does, you have to be like Abraham and Sarah. We have to learn that it's a call to action by individuals, not by institutions. And he says in this chapter in his book on insecurity of freedom, into my hands has been given the future of the entire people. We as individuals are not a microcosm of Judaism, but each of your souls is the soul of an entire people. There is no universal unless you have the individual. So the synagogue can't represent you unless there are individuals within the synagogue. The Jewish community can't be represented by Federation or the Anti-Defamation League unless there are individuals who are there. And we get this from our ancient rabbis who taught us that in our sacred Torah scrolls, there are hundreds of thousands of letters. Each one of them in the Torah scroll is sacred in and of itself. Each letter is a sacred marking on that scroll. However, it doesn't have any significance unless that individual letter stands side by side with another individual and another individual letter to make out a word, and have a space in between to give us phrasing and an understanding of what those terms mean from the sacred scroll. And the rabbis tell you, if one letter is missing from that scroll of hundreds of thousands of letters, that whole scroll is pasul. You can't use it in the synagogue. You can't read from it if one letter is missing. If one individual is not represented in our community as an individual who has been called to action, then none of us can really exist as an entire community. It says in our portion tomorrow that Abraham and Sarah asu nefashot. The translation we'll see tomorrow is they acquired souls, that there were people who went up from Haran with them to the Holy Land, and all these souls went with them. All these people went with them. But the Hebrew says that they made souls, that they influenced these individuals who weren't Jewish. They weren't even Jewish at the time, but they influenced these people to change their view on the world in order to come together as a community, and every soul really counts. So Heschel finishes the chapter by teaching us that we're told that Judaism stands on 4 pillars: God, Torah, the people Israel, and the land of Israel. Without an individual, God is alone, without a relationship with anyone. Without the individual, there's no one to read Torah, the Holy Torah. It has no reason to exist if there aren't individuals who are reading it. When one Jew steps aside from the Jewish people, then why not all of them stepping aside, and then you have no one at all? And the land of Israel exists in the mind of the great Zionist thinker Ahad Ha'am to inspire and fortify Jews who live everywhere. Ahad Ha'am said, Israel is like the hub of a wheel with spokes reaching out. And if Israel doesn't exist, then that whole wheel collapses. So today, we stand at this season of change as nature changes around us and we get cold here in Tucson and we change to warmer clothing. We embrace one another because we're a little bit colder, and there is a new reality, and we have to adapt to it in this moment. Today, we face anti-Semitism and the reality of our history and our people who have faced disaster, deliverance, and dismay. Let us be able to tell the difference right now. Tuesday, vote from a place of your deep values. And today, we face our father and mother, Abraham and Sarah, who are willing to take on the individual task to walk in a new direction, to convert the spirits of those who are with them along for the journey to a new way of thinking, and not leave that to others to do, but they as individuals made that decision. Why? Because every individual counts. So, Lech Lecha, you go. To where? It's up to you. Amen. We invite Seth Ruskin, the president of our congregation, who has announcements for what's coming up.
It's not high enough, right? Is that better? Okay. Thank you. I'd like to welcome all who joined us tonight, whether in person or on Zoom. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you to Rabbi Lockheim and Cantor Cohen for leading services. Thank you to Shoshana and her parent and her family for lighting candles. And thank you to Jeff and Rachel for your drosh, and Shoshana for leading services. I'd like to additionally thank Chris for playing the piano, and JJ and Marshall for the sound and Zoom. Tomorrow, Torah study will take place at 8:30, followed by our Shabbat services at 10, where Shoshana Jacobson will become a bat mitzvah. A reminder from the weekly email that Rabbi Cohen is with Ellen Solot at a chanting event. Women of Kol Ami invite you to attend services next Friday, November 11th at 6:30, as we honor survivors of gynecological and breast cancer. The cancer survivors will share the experiences that impacted them and receive a special blessing. Services will be in person and on Zoom. The WKA is sponsoring the Oneg after. Next Saturday, November 12th at 10 a.m., join us for the bar mitzvah of Andrew Sondheim. Stadheim. The office will be closed on Friday, November 11th in observance of Veterans Day. If you would like the honor of lighting Shabbat candles or delivering a drosh, please contact the office. If you're interested in our spring trips to Israel, please contact the office if you miss the informational meetings. Just a housekeeping request, if you wouldn't mind bringing your prayer books back to the cart in the back. And on behalf of the Colony clergy, staff, and the Board of Trustees, please stay safe, be healthy. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Seth. So I'd like to invite Shoshana up to this microphone right here. She's going to introduce her family members who are here from different places. So who they are, where they're from, and whether they're a Phillies or an Astros fan.
No idea.
Okay, you don't need to do that part. All right, so if the family members, oh, I see a raised fist, we'll have to talk later. So if the family members would please rise, and then when Shosh mentions your name, you can be seated. So you all please stand. Here you go. Yeah, you've got to be introduced.
Where should I start?
You start with your grandma. You can stay right there.
First, we got Grandma Diana. She's from my mom's side. We got Uncle Steve.
Where's he from?
They're all from California.
Oh, they are?
Yes.
Okay. Dodgers? Okay, we'll talk later.
We got Cousin Sydney.
I'm not wearing my Dodger socks. I was wearing them yesterday. Sorry. We know
Cousin
who's in
Sydney,
charge.
Auntie Shayna, Cousin Ava, and Auntie Pat. And Cousin Carrie. She forgot it. Over there, at the very end, we have Uncle Alan on my dad's side, Cousin Danielle, and Tonti. And then we have Julie and Wayne, which I almost forgot, from my dad's side. Okay. And then Sam Jacobson, my brother, Jeff Jacobson, my dad, and then Rachel Jacobson,
Good job.
my mom.
Thank you, Shosh. Have a seat. Wow. If you think that was good, wait till you hear from her tomorrow. She'll be great. We're on page 282 for the Elenu. Reminder for those at home, send your names in for the Kaddish to those comment sections. Page 282, the Elenu, please rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומסתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. We have a tradition in our sacred community that for those who would like to, who are saying Kaddish for a loved one, you can come up and take a pebble from this bowl, place it in your hand, and symbolically feel the impact, the weight of your loved one in your hand for a moment and then place the pebble here. So those in the sanctuary who are saying Kaddish for a loved one, we invite you to come forward if you'd like. So at this time, we recall Mary Stewart, who died this past week. Mary was the mother of Sarah Stewart and Ian Stewart, the wife of Anthony Stewart, grandmother of Elijah and Rachel Cohen, Talia, Naomi, Sammy, and Libby Stewart, the mother-in-law of our Rabbi Malcolm Cohen. We recall at this time those who died within the past 30 days: Nanine Ekdahl, Richard Schenkero, Stephen Friedman, Suzanne Bloomfield, Betty Garfield, Karen Satker, Ronald Levy, Estelle Abrams, and David Woods. And we link their names with those who died at this time in years past. And when you hear the name of your loved one, if you would like, you may rise. Sylvia Abrahams, Minnie Bear Wilson, Anthony Berlingieri, Clara Bilgray, Samuel Brustowski, Francis Cannon, Bernhard Cohen, Helen Damashek, Ann Federhar, Samuel Fox, Betty T. Gale, Mary Goldberg, Robert Goncharski, Robert Gordon, Sheldon Gutman, Donna Hopper, Josh Hunt, Alan Klein, Theodore Koff, Esther Lawesser, Morris Light, Betty Levine, Fanny Levy, Leonard Levy, Gina Luxemburg, Judith McDonald, Ann Moret, Mildred Palis, Anna Polak, Fred Polsky, Frederick Charles Richter, Fred Richter, Karen Riley, Esther Roselle Abramson, Pearl Rosen, Lothar Rosenheimer, Ann Rothschild, Suzanne Rachel Salmon, Gussie Schnappik, Burnett Schwartz, Dolly Dalgano Sergene, Marion Steiner, Ruth Tenon, Ezra Velez, Jenny Weiss, Jeanette Wilpan. If there are those in our synagogue who are saying Kaddish for a loved one, for someone whose name was not mentioned, you may rise and mention those names at this time. Thank you. Thank you. The Kaddish prayer can be found on page 294. We ask our community to please rise and join these loved ones in reading the Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah b'alma divra chirutei v'yamlik malchutei b'chayechon uvyomechon uvchaye d'chol beit Yisrael ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorak leolam ulameo maya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei d'kudashah b'reichu le'elom min kol birkata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata damiran v'alma v'yamru amen. Yehei shlomo rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yamru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav Hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'yamru, amen.
Amen. V'imru, 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 amen. V'imru, 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 amen. Please be seated. Our closing song has to do with Abraham and his adventures. But I have to say something about Shoshana. When you're a parent, you're not supposed to have a favorite kid. You're not. But the kids who sang with me in youth choir, like Sam and Shoshana, are my favorite kids because they know all the songs I know. And they sing with me, and I can call them up at the last minute. She didn't know she was doing this. But I invite you to join us on page 341. And it's in English, most of it, and you can sing it with us. You ready? Go ahead. Lechi lach to a land that I will show you. Lech lecha to a place you do not know. Lechi lach, on your journey I will bless you, and you shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. Lechi lach. Lechi lach, and I shall make your name great. Lech lecha, and all shall praise your name. Lechi lach, to a place that I will show you. L'simchat chayim, l'simchat chayim, l'simchat chayim, lechi lach. And you shall be a blessing, and you shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. Lechi lach. We join together in the Kiddush. I don't know what page it's on. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikra kodesh zecher letziat Mitzrayim. Kivanu v'charta, you can sing. Tanu kidashta mikol amin, v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Amen. L'chaim.
Wait, you're not done yet. No, you get to eat too. Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen. Play ball.
Shabbat shalom. We will all see you in